So I've played quite a few games this year, and I thought it'd be fun to make a video just ranking all of them. Also, before I start the list real quick, I want to clarify this list is in no way objective, it's just personal ranking, so preferably don't comment saying you're going to skin me or something like that if I put a game you like low. But I'm not going to stretch this intro out, make it really long. I'm just going to get into the ranking straight away. The game at the bottom of my list at number 25 is a game which was actually pretty well received, being Doom 2. This was the final game I played this year, with me beating it just yesterday. The gameplay is pretty much the same as the first Doom, which isn't a bad thing. Doom 1 has very good gameplay. The reason this game is so low on the list is the level design. Doom 2 might actually have the worst level design out of any game I've ever played. So many levels make you just constantly backtrack multiple times, which ruins the flow of the game. A bunch of levels have you doing stuff you were seeing like a fake Wonder Weapon glitch video in 2012. I remember on one of the levels you have to open a door, then run to another door at the end of a hallway, go up to the door but don't open it, do a 180 run back down the hallway, and then a magic set of stairs will appear. Like, it's genuinely baffling how bad some of the level design is. The game also just doesn't do much to justify itself as a sequel. Look, I'm not against sequels that stick to the formula of the first game. Sometimes more of a good thing is the best thing you can do, but it barely changes anything. It adds one weapon and a few more enemies. The weapon they add is pretty good, and the enemies are just okay. But it just doesn't do much to justify its existence. I know this game did have a massive influence on modding, but my ranking is based just on the base game itself, and that's why it's at the bottom of my list. Next is Borderlands 1. I'm going to keep this short because this is one of the only games on the list I didn't beat, but I played it for a few hours and was not enjoying it at all. Maybe I'll revisit it at a later date and my opinion will change. At this point in time, I just don't think it's that good. Next on the list is Pokemon Brilliant Diamond. I want to clarify that I haven't played the original Diamond, so my ranking doesn't have anything to do with that, but I did not enjoy this game. The region didn't feel fun to explore or traverse, and there's a massive lack in variety of Pokemon. If you don't pick the Fire Starter, I think there's like 2 Fire Pokemon you can get, it's really dumb. Also, I still have PTSD from Cynthia's Garchomp. Not a great game. Okay, this is going to be very short, but next up is Doki Doki Literature Club. I just don't think I'm the target audience, to be honest, because I do not care for visual novels. Not really the game of soul or anything, it's just not my thing. At 21st on the list is Marvel Rivals. I played this with a few friends at the start of the year, and I didn't have that much fun. It's not exactly the game I'd expect to be into, to be fair, because I don't care for hero shooters or Marvel, but I don't know, I just didn't find the gameplay that fun. The game also wasn't optimized that well for PC on launch, so that's definitely a big reason why it's so low in my ranking. Schedule 1 is number 20 on my list. I think this is another case of just not being the target audience, because I'm not a big fan of simulators. It feels way too much like a job, growing something, putting it in bags, going somewhere to sell it, so you can buy something which means you can sell more, and repeat gets boring very fast in my opinion. Next up is Ready or Not. I can't lie, I thought I would have enjoyed this game a lot more, but I didn't have that much fun with it. The game had some funny moments, but the gameplay got old pretty fast. Also, I didn't have the game on an SSD, and if it's not on an SSD, it just runs like complete shit. Rematch is the next entry on the list. I played it for a bit when it came out and didn't have that strong of an opinion on it. Football games are very rarely interesting, and I think Rematch fits into that issue as well. I remember my main problem with the game being that it just felt really scripted. Like I said, I don't have that strong of an opinion on the game, it's just fine, I guess. Next is a pretty popular game, with it being Subnautica. I'm definitely going to have to give it another go at some point because I didn't play a huge amount of it, but something just wasn't clicking. It just felt like I was doing the same stuff over and over again, and I didn't feel much sense of progression, so after a while, I just got bored and stopped playing. Like I said, I'm definitely going to try it again, but at this point in time, it's 17th on the list. Next up at number 16 is The Game of Life 2. Honestly, it's not a great game, there's not a lot of content, and it can get boring very quick, but I've played it with some friends a few times, and we had a decent amount of fun. Watching people go into debt is very funny. Putting this game below the halfway point on the list is probably a hot take, but the next entry is the OG Resident Evil 3. There are quite a few things I like about this game. Nemesis is badass, I really like Jill and Carlos, exploring Raccoon City as it's in a state of decay is fun, the choice system is pretty cool as well. My main issues with the game stem more from gameplay factors. I don't want to be too harsh on the game for fixed cameras because the game is like 26 years old, and they're more of a hardware limitation than a stylistic choice, but I always find them very tedious to deal with. My biggest gripe with the game is how much of it revolves around a dodge system that just doesn't work. The game has a dodge mechanic, and it doesn't respond most of the time when you try to use it. This wouldn't be such a big issue if so many fights and encounters weren't made completely relying on the mechanic. The Nemesis Clock Tower fight might be the most infuriating boss battle I've ever played. Also, if you aren't careful, it is very easy to softlock yourself. It's a pretty good game, dragged down by a few issues. 14th on the list is Soma. The story and world of Soma is really well done and fascinating, and I was hooked and intrigued by it the whole playthrough. Okay, I've just said "and" way too many times. Anyway, the problem is the gameplay isn't very interesting. The whole game you basically just walk around doing simple puzzles. There's a few sections where you run and hide from monsters, which aren't particularly scary or challenging. Great story, but the gameplay's just not very interesting, unfortunately. Next, we have Little Nightmares 3. I played the first Little Nightmares around 5 years ago and thought it was pretty fun. And earlier this year, I beat Little Nightmares 2, which completely blew one out of the water, and I really enjoyed. So I was pretty excited going to this. And to be honest, it was kind of disappointing. I think 1 and 2 have much better character design and atmosphere. Also, in Little Nightmares 3, it feels a lot less tense. I feel like there's not much reason as to what's happening, because in 1, you're trapped on the ship, where the people on it are eating kids, and it's a symbolism of human greed. And in Little Nightmares 2, you're in this massive rundown city, and the game symbolizes mass consumption of media. And in both of those games, there's a helpless feeling of being trapped. But in 3, it doesn't feel like there's anything being told through the environments, and there isn't that claustrophobic feeling of being trapped. Because instead of having to traverse through these horrible places in 1 and 2, knowing there isn't a free ticket out, in 3, you can just stumble across these mirrors, which will just randomly teleport you to another random place. It just feels like you're going from place to place with no meaning, unlike in 1 and 2, where every interaction played a part in symbolizing the world it was a part of. Even though I've only said bad things about the game so far, I still think it's decent. The gameplay still feels like Little Nightmares, and the funfair section is fantastic. Also, I feel like I have a bit of an unfair prejudice on the game, because when I played it on my PC, it was performing horribly. Because, okay, I'm gonna rant a bit, this isn't to do a game. For some reason, in like October, Windows rolled out like an update, which just meant if you had like an Xbox controller plugged in, you would drop to like 30 frames on everything. I don't even know how that happened, but yeah, that was generally awful. Windows never do that again. I thought my PC was just done for. Anyway, back to what I was saying. But yeah, when I was playing the game, I was kind of being bugged by my performance, so that definitely had an impact on my enjoyment of the game. Honestly, I've yapped about this game for way too long. It's a solid game, it's just disappointing compared to what came before it. Next up is Pokemon Scarlet. This is definitely an interesting game. The worst thing about it is definitely how it performs and looks. There are some parts of the game, mostly when it's raining or something, where you'll drop to like 5 frames per second, and the game overall just does not perform well. And it's not like you are getting a trade-off of worse performance for good graphics, because graphically, it's also horrible. Like, I don't think graphics are the most important thing for a game, and the Switch isn't the strongest console, I'm aware, but Pokemon is just not the most profitable gaming franchise of all time. It's the most profitable franchise in any media of all time, and the game genuinely looks horrible. I remember there is a cutscene where you're at the top of a lighthouse or something, and you look over the world, and someone says, "Look how beautiful it is," and the game actually looks like it's on a Nintendo 64. It's embarrassing. I don't know what Nintendo are doing, they need to lock it in. Also, it's probably the weakest generation of any Pokemon game. There's only a few evolution lines I actually care for. The things saving this game are 1. The Pokemon gameplay loop is just fun and satisfying. Finding Pokemon, catching them, and using them in battle is fun. And 2. The world exploration and finding the Pokemon and interacting with them in the wild was implemented pretty well. It's also a lot of fun. It's a game which is solid, but has some very big glaring issues. Honestly, having this game not that high on the list feels a bit weird, but next up is the 2002 Resident Evil remake. I say it feels weird because I remember liking a lot about this game. Spencer Mansion was really cool, I remember the game having a really strong atmosphere, the Crimson Heads were awesome, I like the characters, like, I genuinely remember liking a lot about this game, but I just didn't enjoy it much, and I don't really know why, to be honest. I definitely didn't like the fixed cameras at all, so that definitely plays a part of it, but to be truthfully honest, I feel like I should have enjoyed it a lot more than I did. I'm definitely gonna have to play it again to see if I enjoy it more on a second playthrough or something, but for now, it's 11th on the list. That was a weird ranking, so I didn't even know myself how much I liked it, but anyway. If you didn't like that ranking, you're probably not going to like this one, because the next game on the list is the most hated Resident Evil 6. I've probably gone to hell in 10 separate religions with that ranking alone, but honestly, I enjoyed my time with Resident Evil 6. Is it the best game ever? Absolutely not. Is it overhated? Definitely. The gameplay in this is a lot of fun, you can do all these crazy melee attacks, the gunplay is pretty good, and you have great enemy variety. I think the game is so hated because of what people expect from it. Like, if you go into this expecting it to be a survival horror, then yeah, you're not going to like it that much. But if you go in and just treat it as what it is, which is a really goofy over-the-top action game, then you'll probably have a lot more fun. The game definitely has its problems. It goes on for way too long, it has weird gimmicky menus, it's a weird multiple campaign system. Although it is pretty funny the amount of action, it just gets ridiculous after a while, and it's way too much for a Resident Evil game. Planes are constantly falling out of the sky, there's zombies with assault rifles, and there's zombies in tanks. It's actually batshit insane. It's not a perfect game, but like I said before, if you go into it expecting a goofy action game and don't take it too seriously, you'll probably have a lot more fun than you would think. Another Resident Evil is the next game, with it being Resident Evil 5. I had a good amount of fun playing Resident Evil 5. Gonna get the best thing out of the way first, Wesker is awesome. One of the coolest gaming villains ever, the way he's built up over time, this is a big game where it climaxes is really cool. The gameplay's pretty good, I didn't play co-op, but that seems like a lot of fun and I'll definitely need to try it someday. My problem with the game mostly comes from one thing. The game is kind of just a shit Resident Evil 4. Basically everything you fight is a copy of an enemy from Resident Evil 4. The Manchi are just worse Gyarados, and even so many of the mini-bosses and bosses are copies from Resident Evil 4. You have a cheap imitation of Dr. Salvador, the most iconic enemy from Resident Evil 4. You have the jetpack dudes, which is literally just JJ with a jetpack slapped on him. Also, El Gigante is a boss. Not even like a reskin. They literally just copy and paste him and put him in the game. I get Ouroboros is the same strand of virus as Las Plagas, so there's gonna be similarities, but I really wish they would have had more unique enemies because it would have really benefited the game. Also, I do think this was the turning point in Resident Evil where there was a bit too much action. Not Resident Evil 6 levels of action, but I would have preferred if it was turned down a bit. I hope one day we can get a remake of this game where they can fix some of their wrongdoings. Good game, just suffers from a lack of originality. Number 8 is the OG 1993 Doom. I probably won't go on too long about this title, it just has a solid fun gameplay loop. You grab a gun, run around killing demons, maybe find some secrets, then go to the next level and repeat. Also, considering this game is like 32 years old, it holds up insanely well. Just overall, a really fun game. Also, I forgot to mention, it's like one of the most influential games of all time, so yeah. Number 7 in the list is the first Alan Wake. Pretty good game. The combat is a bit repetitive, but the foundations of it are solid, so I didn't get tired of it and enjoyed it. The gameplay in general is just fun. Also, a really cool, unique narrative, which I was engaged with throughout the whole game. I don't have many criticisms, if I'm being real. The biggest one I would have is the final chapter is pretty wank, but apart from that, I don't really have anything bad to say. To be honest, I really need to play Alan Wake 2. It's been rotting in my Epic Games library for quite some time, and now that I have a decent SSD I can run it on, I should probably start playing it, because from what I've heard, it's supposed to be incredible. Next game might be a hot take, because it's one of the best received games of all time, and I constantly hear people say it's the best game they've ever played. But number 6 is Red Dead Redemption 2. It's actually taken me quite some time to beat this game. I originally got it on my PS4 in 2021, but didn't play it that much. Then in 2022, I got it on a Steam sale, eventually got bored and stopped playing. And then 2024, I tried it again, but again, got bored and stopped playing. And now in 2025, I finally played through the whole thing and beat it. And I'm glad I did, because it was a lot of fun. The game has an incredible open world. I don't think any game has better attention to detail than Red Dead 2. Like anything in the world you interact with will change depending on how you interact with it. You'll see the changes in the snow you walk through, or if an NPC is eating something, if you wait around, you can see what they're eating will actually have chunks missing and eventually be gone. It's actually insane the amount of detail the game has. The world and characters actually feel alive. They did a fantastic job in that department. The game has a really good narrative, which you engage with through the whole game, and the characters are really interesting. And because of the amount of dialogue which can be played in so many different situations, like I said before, the characters actually seem alive. So far, I've just glazed the game, so I'm going to get onto what holds it back from, in my opinion, truly being a masterpiece, and that's the gameplay. They did an incredible job in every department, apart from the gameplay, and unfortunately, gameplay is the most important aspect of a game. Is the gameplay bad? No, but I don't know if I would call it good either. It's just mediocre, to be honest. Way too much, and I mean way too much of the game is just been going a horse from point A to point B, doing nothing in between. The game does have good writing and dialogue which will play through these sections, and also the game does have great detailed environments which does make it less tedious, but it still feels like a chore most of the time. The combat isn't great either. Most of it is hiding behind cover, locking onto people's head, and reusing a 2-decade-old gimmick. It just doesn't feel that fun or satisfying. The game does feel like it drags on for a bit too long as well. It's a very good game, but held back massively by its gameplay. At number 5 is a game people have very split opinions on, being The Last of Us Part 2. I played the first Last of Us for the first time in 2023, and it instantly became one of my favourite games of all time. So when I saw Part 2 was coming to PC in 2025, I was very excited, and bought it basically as soon as it was released on Steam. Going into it, the only thing I knew about it was the golf incident, and this game definitely gave me an experience. I don't really know where to start, so I'll start with the gameplay. The gameplay is fantastic. Controlling the characters feels really smooth, the weaponry feels really good to use, there's a good variety of enemies which keeps them fresh, and there's a bunch of things you can use in the environment to your advantage which makes each fight unique. No complaints on the gameplay side of things. But now we get to a more controversial area of discussion, which is the narrative. Everyone I've heard talk about the story either loves it or hates it, and I don't think I'm either. I'm very in between, to be honest. Some parts of the narrative are great. The voice acting and performance is obviously incredible. The game left me flabbergasted so many times, I had my hand on my head like on 10 separate occasions, and in my opinion it has the most impactful and emotional scene in any game ever. And they took a lot of risks with the narrative, which is something I can at least respect. I'm trying to think if I can talk about the negatives of the story without mentioning spoilers, but I don't think I can, so if you want to play The Last of Us Part 2 and haven't, just skip this part of the video. Alright, now that they're gone, let's talk about the golf ball in the room, Joel's death. I don't think I can say I like the death of my favourite gaming protagonist of all time, but I don't think it was an awful mistake that ruined the game. I think killing off one of the most beloved gaming protagonists of all time at the start of the sequel is a massive risk to take, and honestly a really interesting route to take as well, because it shows what the reality of what living in a post-apocalyptic world is like. Even the most beloved character in the franchise can die out of nowhere, and it's not like a hero's death either, it's a very brutal death, and doesn't sugarcoat at all how unforgiving and brutal the world they live in is. And it shows that no one in this game is safe and anything can happen. Also, I kind of just realized that I said that I was going to get onto the negatives, and I've started by praising the most hated decision in the game, so I'll actually get onto stuff I hate now. Abby. I really don't like how you have to play as her for half the game. I don't think she's likable at all, I don't think what she does to Joel is justified, I don't really think outside that action she's actually interesting either. I'm sorry, but I hate playing as Abby. It's definitely an interesting decision to switch midway through the game and go through the villain's perspective, but for me, it's a risk that didn't pay off. I also don't like at all how the timeline is set out, because the game kind of spoils itself by doing 3 days as Ellie, then 3 days as Abby. I think it would have been much better if you did 1 day as Ellie and 1 day as Abby, because before you even start Abby's section, you already have a massive amount of information on what goes on her side. I also think a lot of the characters introduced in the game aren't particularly interesting, which is a shame, because in part 1 every character you run into is very interesting and all contribute positively to the game. Same can't be said for part 2, sadly. It's a great game, which takes a lot of risks, some pay off, some don't. In 4th place is Dying Light the Beast. I adored the first Dying Light and played Dying Light 2 on release, and it might be the most the game has ever disappointed me. So with the taste of disappointment still in my mouth from 2, as well as the fact this game was originally a DLC for the game with only 3 years of development, I did not have high expectations at all going into this. But it's safe to say, this game blew me away. This is what Dying Light 2 should have been. It has fun combat, great parkour, and does everything well that the original did well, whilst also adding new enemies and mechanics like the chimeras and beast mode to keep the game fresh. I don't think anyone's playing Dying Light for the narrative, but this game actually has a lot of cool story beats as well. Just overall a really good example of how a sequel should be done. We're into the top 3 now, and to kick it off in 3rd place is Lone Nightmares 2. I've had this in my Steam library for ages, and I actually don't know why it took me so long to come around to completing, because it's incredible. One of the best atmospheres in any game I've ever played, potentially the best character designs out of any game I've ever played. The story it tells of its environment is really interesting, also has an insane plot twist. The game doesn't have the most innovative or exciting gameplay ever, but I still think it's fun, especially the chase sequences. If I had to think of some critiques, it would be that we really should have got to explore more of the Signal Tower, especially considering how short the final chapter is. But outside that, Lone Nightmares 2 is a fantastic game. The silver medal goes to the Silent Hill 2 remake. Gotta start this by saying I haven't played the OG yet, so I can't comment on how good of a remake it is, but from what I know, it's a very well done, faithful remake. Onto the game itself, and it's fantastic. It completely nails the survival horror aspect. Not crazy enemy variety, but all of them are fun to fight. Combat feels very smooth as well. The narrative is amazing, one of the best out of any game I've played, and really interesting to watch unwind. The game also has a great soundtrack, and the atmosphere of the game really captures the looming dread feeling the game gives off. I don't have anything bad to say about it, apart from it maybe wasn't optimized incredibly, but apart from that, awesome game. And the best game I played this year would be the OG Resident Evil 4. I played the Resident Evil 4 remake when it first came out in 2023, and it's now tied to my favourite game of all time with the OG. At the start, the controls movement can feel a bit weird and clunky, but after you get used to them, the game's ridiculously fun and it blasts the whole way through. It's some of the best, maybe even the best gameplay out of any game ever. Roundhouse kicking and suplexing Spanish villagers will never get old. It has one of the most iconic game protagonists of all time with Leon and his stupid one-liners. Overall, just a great cast: Leon, Ada, Sadler, and even less known characters like Ramon, who is unironically hilarious and great. The game has aged so unbelievably well, I can't believe this game is 21 years old. Playing it back when it first came out must have been insane. Like, even from a graphical perspective, it aged really well. Sure, it's not realistic, but it just has its charm to it. And the art style they went with just looks great. Honestly, I could sit here all day glazing, so I'm going to try and talk about some negatives, because for a game as good as it is, it actually has more than you would think. The quick time events are very tedious, especially if you're playing on the harder difficulties. I couldn't use my fingers for a day after the Ramon statue. There's also definitely a big drop off in quality of the island compared to the rest of the game. But even then, the island is still great. It just has the disadvantage of 2 of the greatest sections in video game history coming for it. I also think Krauser in the OG sucks, and the game would be better off with everything regarding him removed. Even though there are some negatives, I'm fine with dealing with them, because they get completely drowned out by how fucking good the rest of the game is. There's a reason this is the most influential game of the last century and flipped every corner of the gaming industry on its head when it came out. Absolute masterpiece. Okay, so that was my ranking. Let me know what you disagreed on and whatnot in the comments, because I'm actually kind of curious to know. It's 2026 now, so hope you have a good new year, and yeah, thank you for watching.